Haven't you heard? I'm the crazy bitch around here.
Whoever said girls are made of sugar and spice and everything nice didn't go to school with a Blair Waldorf, a Cheryl Blossom, a Heather Chandler, or a Regina George. These mean girls ruled their high schools with an iron fist.
Shoo, bitches!
And if we break down the mean girl character type in movies and TV, we see some recurring elements. She's confident and ambitious, but she takes these positive qualities to a dark extreme.
I admire you so much.
And why wouldn't you?
She's often highly intelligent and cunning, with a canny understanding of how to manipulate people for personal entertainment.
You're just a toy, Sebastian. A little toy I like to play with.
She's glamorous and charismatic.
Regina's like the Barbie doll I never had. I'd never seen anybody so glamorous.
Even to those who hate her.
The weird thing about hanging out with Regina was that I could hate her, and at the same time, I still wanted her to like me.
She's driven by rage, which comes from her realistic yet cynical understanding of the world.
Heather told me she teaches people real life. She said, real life sucks losers dry.
The status quo of the social hierarchy actually makes her miserable. But instead of overturning it, she chooses to perpetuate the toxic cycle, because at least she's on top. So the mean girl is the high school version of the cautionary tale that power corrupts.
I made you, and I'm God. That's all you need to know.
Here's our take on the mean girl on screen. What makes her tick, what she represents, and why she ultimately has to fall.
You're an awful person.
Maybe, but I'm rich and I'm pretty, so it doesn't really matter.
This video is brought to you by Mubi, a curated streaming service showing exceptional films from around the globe. It's like your own personal film festival streaming anytime, anywhere. The core of the Mean Girl's identity is rage. Mean Girls star Rachel McAdams described Regina George as a really angry kid who had no boundaries or guidance, and said director Mark Waters told her to listen to Courtney Love's music and watch Alec Baldwin and Glengarry Glen Ross for inspiration.
Because you drove a Hyundai to get here tonight, I drove an $80,000 BMW. That's my name.
Early examples of the mean girl already embody a raw anger or hatred towards the protagonist that's hard to immediately understand. Here's beautiful, wealthy, popular Chris and Carrie talking about the awkward, painfully shy classmate who's never done anything to her.
I hate Carrie White.
Who?
And look at the intensity of the hatred that beautiful, wealthy, popular girl Benny has toward Molly Ringwald's Andy.
Am I having a nightmare?
These mean girls of the 70s and 80s planted this mystery of why the girl who has everything so fiercely despises the outcast who has less, a pattern we'd see continue in later examples. In 1988, Heathers gave us a more complex and alarming look at the pathological society that drove the queen bee to be so mean.
It's just like, there are people I work with and our job is being popular and shit.
But the trope really took off and became a fixture in 90s and early 2000s movies, and this timing is no coincidence. In the early 90s, Kai Bjorkvist's research shed new light on female aggression. According to Bjorkvist, girls can better understand how other girls feel, so they know better how to harm them. In 1995, Nikki R. Crick and Jennifer K. Grotpeter coined the term relational aggression to describe how, while boys tend to be overtly aggressive through physical violence or threats, girls are more likely to express aggression by weaponizing relationships. Relational aggression comes out in behaviors like exclusion and spreading rumors or lies.
I want you to raise your hand if you have ever had a girl say something bad about you behind your back.
Early 2000s bestsellers like Odd Girl Out and Queen Bees and Wannabes, which inspired Mean Girls, further spotlighted the subject of female bullying. As young women grow up, their angry, aggressive, and competitive impulses become less socially acceptable, so they're forced to express these emotions in under-the-table ways.
The aggression might be increasing to the extent that we are putting more pressure on girls to achieve in the same ways that boys achieve, but again, not giving them the license to engage in the kinds of competitiveness and aggressions that they need to go the distance.
The mean girls we see on screen are often smiling assassins. Their machinations are more sinister because they're hidden under a cover of surface niceness.
I love your skirt. Where did you get it?
That is the ugliest effing skirt I've ever seen.
So, part of the problem is that girls aren't given license to deal with conflict honestly, out in the open.
I knew how this would be settled in the animal world. But this was girl world.
And the lack of communication leads to a toxic buildup of resentment. That's why Mean Girls Miss Norbury doesn't tell the girls to stop feeling angry. She urges them to
express your anger in a healthy way.
There's also an even more disturbing reason girls resort to relational aggression. They're bored. We don't have to look any further than Mean Girls' burn book to see what this looks like.
That book was written by a bunch of stupid girls who make up rumors because they're bored with their own lame lives.
Girls bullying each other for entertainment is very sad, and it points to a culture that's not offering young women constructive outlets for their self-expression.
I use my grand IQ to decide what color gloss to wear and how to hit 3 kegers before curfew.
What's so interesting about the Mean Girl is that she's full of potential. Her male equivalent is the jock bully who preys on nerds. But the jock is usually portrayed as dumb and boorish, while the Mean Girl is strikingly bright and perceptive. She can read the people around her like a book.
Her hair looks so sexy pushed back. Katie, will you please tell him his hair looks sexy pushed back?
Even if she's a dark figure, she embodies many empowering qualities that teen girls should aspire towards: fierce ambition, determination, and belief in herself.
Power isn't just my mission, it's my mantra.
We could imagine a very different version of her story where the Mean Girl gets to channel her talents into a worthwhile pursuit.
And her physical therapist taught her to channel all her rage into sports.
Looking at all this together, it becomes clear that this character's meanness is really a coping mechanism. The sympathetic take on these frustrated young women is that they're thwarted by a suffocating system that doesn't expect them to be more than vapid sex symbols or allow them to embrace their full mental power. The Mean Girl is under no illusions about how the real world works.
Life's a bitch, then you die.
She may be beautiful and rich, but the true reason the Queen Bee rises to the top in the first place is her cold, cynical understanding of the system. She gets that public opinion is everything.
Everybody loves me, and I intend to keep it that way.
So she skillfully cultivates an image that makes her seem godlike. In Jawbreaker, Courtney's rule about not eating in public suggests she doesn't even want to be seen as human.
The mere act of eating invokes thoughts of digestion, flagellation, defecation, even, shall we say, complexion defection.
Like a monarch, the Queen Bee builds a larger culture around herself to keep her subjects in line and worshipping at her altar.
Because being with the plastics was like being famous. People looked at you all the time, and everybody just knew stuff about you.
She has a posse of enforcers, which often has its own group name, and a strict code of laws that must be obeyed.
And Girl World had a lot of rules.
You can't wear a tank top 2 days in a row, and you can only wear your hair in a ponytail once a week.
Her hyper-vigilance in maintaining her reputation reveals that, while the student body sees her as untouchable, she knows how tenuous her position really is.
But popularity can be fleeting.
There can be many different reasons for the Mean Girl's pessimistic outlook.
My boyfriend compulsively cheats on me. All of my friends work for me. My parents didn't even call me on my birthday because they were too busy hosting a fundraiser for Jeb Bush.
There's the claustrophobia of being a teenage girl in a sexist, unfair world, and knowing you have so much more potential than you can realize.
God forbid I exude confidence and enjoy sex. Do you think I relish the fact that I have to act like Mary Sunshine 24/7 so I can be considered a lady?
There may be great suffering in the character's backstory. On Riverdale, Cheryl Blossom's hostility is really an expression of her pain.
Everyone thinks I'm this loveless monster, but it isn't true. I loved someone who loved me. My mother destroyed it.
But most troublingly, the Mean Girl's worldview represents a broader societal outlook. Usually, this character has inherited a corrupt value system from the privileged adults in her life.
You will never be more beautiful or thin or happy than you are right now.
So essentially, this young woman embodies the elitism and superficiality of the most powerful people in our world.
Some people are simply better than others.
In Pretty in Pink, the only real reason we're given for Benny's problem with Andy is that she views this working-class girl as less than.
Where'd you get your clothes? 5 and dime store?
But this is learned behavior, reflecting how the world at large defines Andy and her peers by how much money they have.
I'm getting a better education than I deserve. I'm lucky. I'm fortunate that the good people of this community allow me to attend this school.
So the real culprit is a messed up society that teaches impressionable young adults to value beauty, wealth, and fame over inner virtues like kindness.
You were a good person, Fern. A lot of good that did me.
Ultimately, the mean girl is just ahead of the curve. She embodies the cutthroat attitude and materialist standards we expect from power players in the adult world, where there are no teachers trying to help everyone get along. All this makes the mean girl so often the antagonist or villain of her story. Meanwhile, the protagonist is typically a rebel who tries to bring down a wrong society.
Why is everybody stressing over this thing? I mean, it's just plastic. It's really just... share it.
Since the mean girl is the equivalent of a queen or aristocrat, she doesn't have any incentive to overturn the system that keeps her in power. She chooses to succeed within it, thereby protecting her popularity. Yet the irony is that she actively fights to preserve a status quo that makes her suffer.
You put on a good front, but you're miserable. Don't you think any of that has anything to do with the fact that you've created an atmosphere based solely on negativity and raw ambition?
In Heathers, Heather Chandler acts like she's helped Veronica by making her part of the in crowd, and Veronica should be grateful.
You were nothing before you met me.
Even though Heather's own social success clearly doesn't make her happy. At the Remington party, Heather's college boyfriend pushes her to do more than she's comfortable with.
Should we get back to the party?
We will. You're so hot tonight. I can't control myself.
But when Veronica resists the guy who's trying to pressure her in the same way, Heather is outraged.
What's your damage? Brad says you're being a real coos.
Veronica's refusal to conform bothers Heather so much because she lacks this spark to be an individual. There's a deeper symbolism in the term queen bee. Bee colonies are divided into castes, much like a high school hierarchy. Without the queen, the bee colony can't survive, so it relies on her to keep the whole structure alive. But the mean girl is actually at the mercy of her colony. Claire Gillespie writes, "While the queen bee is pivotal to everything that happens inside the hive, she is not, contrary to popular belief, in control of the colony. In fact, the thousands of worker bees control the queen." All this brings us to the answer to that mystery we raised of why the mean girl hates the misfit with such intensity. She fears the alternative outcast as a threat to the system she's invested in maintaining. But even more than that, she envies that girl for her freedom and her willingness to rebel. Because while the kingdom the mean girl reigns over leaves her deeply dissatisfied, she can't conceive of life outside it.
And I realize now that none of this matters to me. But it does to you. It's your dream.
This gives us more insight into what drives even the one-dimensional Benny in Pretty in Pink. She puts Andy down because her clothes aren't expensive, but this outfit expresses a quirky, charming style that stands out. On some level, Benny probably wishes she had Andy's individuality, which significantly has attracted the attention of Benny's rich boyfriend, Steph.
You know, I've been out with a lot of girls at this school. I don't see what makes you so different.
I have some taste.
More often than not, the on-screen mean girl isn't redeemed in the end. Even if she's humanized, it's within limits. Instead, the main event is her being overthrown or exposed as the evil person she is, as her oppressed population unites against her. In Heathers, after Heather Chandler dies, everyone jumps to believing she was more than a one-dimensional dictator.
Thought she was your usual airhead bitch. Guess I was wrong. We all were.
But the movie's point is that they weren't wrong. And the takeaway of many of these movies is that the mean girl is rotten to the core.
You're a bad person with an ugly heart, and we don't give a flying what you think.
Her aspirations often don't extend far beyond becoming prom queen, or if they do, her goal is extremely superficial.
I'm what's known as pre-famous. My life is an audition for reality TV, so yeah, I need to chronicle everything.
In movies where we see the character as an adult, she's fixated on her past glory days, perpetuating the narrative that those who are popular in high school peak early and go downhill from there, unlike high school losers and nerds who will surely go on to great things.
Mia, you're such a freak!
Yeah,
Yeah, I am. But you know what? Someday I just might grow out of that. But you will never stop being a jerk.
So we're encouraged to feel a sense of superiority over the mean girl. Yet it feels wrong to derive pleasure from the mean girl's downfall. First, as we've discussed, she usually embodies strong, powerful traits that are generally rewarded by our society. So why wouldn't she be destined for big things? In High School Musical, Sharpay is ruthless as she tries to maintain control over the school musical.
We need to save our show from people who don't know the difference between a Tony Award and Tony Hawk.
She's acting the way any highly competitive person would if their ambition were threatened. And this kind of behavior generally yields success in the adult world. If we're not the cool, rich, beautiful leader, it's tempting to console ourselves that we must be better people, and she'll get her comeuppance. But vilifying the mean girl through this black and white moral lens is missing the point, because to some degree, there's a mean girl in all of us waiting to come out.
There's good and bad to everybody, right? Regina's just... she's just more upfront about it.
It only takes one sip of the Kool-Aid to cross over to the dark side.
Why are you such a mega bitch?
Because I can be.
In Mean Girls, as Katie replaces Regina, she finds herself effortlessly transforming into a master manipulatrix.
I had learned how to control everyone around me.
Even Janice, who sees herself as Regina's victim, is really her oppressor's equal in scheming and cruelty.
I just think that it would be like a fun little experiment if you were to hang out with them and then tell us everything that they say.
The movie's writer Tina Fey has said that in high school, she was a mean girl, and she described her behavior as a coping mechanism for feeling less than. This is something Fey also explored in 30 Rock, where Liz Lemon is shocked to discover that in high school she was not a victim, but a victimizer.
What are you talking about? I was a nerd. You were a bully. We were all afraid of you.
Most of us don't fit neatly into the high school character types we see on screen. It's possible to be both unpopular and cruel, or cool and smart.
We didn't party because we wanted to focus on school and get into good colleges. But the irresponsible people who partied also got into those colleges. They did both.
To reduce your peers or yourself to just one thing does a disservice to everyone. And it distracts from the more important takeaway. It's the world that's mean. This girl's just doing a better job of living in it.
I have an army to build, a school to take over, and girls to blackmail.
Hey guys, this is Alani, and today I want to talk to you about one of our favorite places to watch movies. Mubi. Mubi is a treasure trove of films. Every day, Mubi premieres a new film. Whether it's a movie you've been dying to see or one you've never heard of before, there is always something new to discover. So in this world where it's very easy to spend hours debating what you should watch, Mubi is like having a really cool friend with amazing taste in movies, making it so much easier for you. They feature hard-to-come-by masterpieces, indie festival darlings, influential art house and foreign films, lesser-known films by your favorite famous directors, and more. Plus, you can even download the films to watch offline, and there are no ads, ever. One movie you can check out right now on Mubi is The Chrysanthemum and the Guillotine. This explosive film is set in 1920s Japan and follows the intertwined stories of an anarchist group and a troupe of female sumo wrestlers. We can't recommend Mubi highly enough. You can try it out now for free for a whole month. Just click the link in the description below.